What is going on, guys? Gavin here, and today I want to go over my build for Blind Second branded Despia Bestial. I'm really a huge fan of what the Bestial cards offer for this deck, giving us kind of an alternative route of playing this deck, as we can play it as more of a slower control deck that also generates even more value over the course of the game with the new branded continuous cards. So I'm just a huge fan of that, and just a huge fan of the way that this deck plays out. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the deck profile. For the Despia engine, we are playing triple copies of Albaz, triple copies of Tragedy, and then a single copy of each Ad-lib and Dramaturge. So obviously Albaz is our main searcher of the deck, searching us out those branded spell and trap cards. Really solid. Tragedy searches out the rest of the pieces of the Despia engine when it is sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect. Its graveyard effect of being able to banish itself from the graveyard to reset a branded spell or trap card is really nice as well. It's notable that against the Tearlament Ishizu deck, if they mill this card during their turn, you can definitely search with it and grab another Despia monster from your deck, which you're definitely going to need to try and break that board because that deck is really insane. But yeah, also when this card is in your graveyard for your follow-up, you can actually banish it to try and reset another branded spell or trap that you may have milled during your opponent's turn, which is really important too, because you can start trying to bait or chew through your opponent's interactions. Because if you have like this card in, say, a branded fusion in your graveyard and you try and reset that branded fusion, your opponent's definitely going to be really tempted to try and shuffle that back into your deck so that you don't have access to it. So hitting this card during your opponent's turn off the mills, really clutch. And then Ad-lib for recurring our Despia monsters or level 8 or higher fusion monsters, and then Dramaturge, probably the weakest piece of the Despia engine at this point, but still feel like it's worth playing, or at least I still like playing it, just because he's a huge body when you use him as fusion material. Just 3k is insane, and also the nice little negation that he provides when a fusion synchro, Xyz, or link monster is special summoned. For the Albaz cards, we are playing triple copies of Fallen of Albaz, a single copy of Albion, and then a single copy of each Incredible Ecclesia, Blazing Cartesia, and Tri-Brigade Mercarrier. So I think triple Fallen of Albaz is fine. Chances are we're not going to open multiple. I really do hate when you open 2 or more copies of Fallen of Albaz, but you always want to have 1 copy of this card in your deck, and even opening 1 isn't too bad because you can always use it as fusion material, or you can just go ahead and normal summon it if you don't have a better normal summon and start chewing through your opponent's disruptions and interactions that way. Because if they have an extra deck monster on the field, they just absolutely cannot let this card resolve, because then you're making Mirror Jade, and once you make Mirror Jade, you're pretty much winning the game. But this card, also having it in the graveyard, is really nice because it makes your branded in red live, and also allows your Blazing Cartesia to be special summoned for free. Then we play the 1 Albion to cycle and set up our graveyard. I'm a really big fan of this card. It's just provides a lot of utility, especially later on into the game, sending branded spell and trap cards to the graveyard so that you can reset them with your Tragedy is really nice. And also being able to, sometimes you can just sneakily special summon this card onto the field, and if you open it with Super Poly, like this card is also Fallen of Albaz on the field, so that's really good, and also makes your Blazing Cartesia live when this card is in the graveyard. So really cool and flexible card in Albion. And then we play the Incredible Ecclesia, because this card, when we go second, more often than not, we can just special summon it onto the board, and then try and e-telly out an Albaz from the deck to, play through or start eating out more of our opponent's interaction. Blazing Cartesia, I wanted another copy of Poly, and I didn't really want to play Poly in the deck because I'm not playing the Fight for stuff. So this card is just a way to fusion summon, and it's also a free special summon under the right circumstances, being you have Fallen of Albaz or Albion in your graveyard, and you can also fusion summon during your opponent's turn with this card. Definitely want to keep in mind though, you don't really want to make Guardian Chimera with this card, because Guardian Chimera only gets its effect to pop and draw when it's summoned with a spell card. So definitely want to keep that in mind, but you can use it to special summon or fusion summon other monsters, and also once the new fusion monster comes out in Photon Hypernova, we can also use this card as a super poly target, so definitely am looking forward to that as well. And then Mercarrier is a really good card to banish in this deck, and also searchable as well. So yeah, it provides a nice little monster negate when our opponent, or when we have a Albaz fusion on the field. So yeah, that is it for the Albaz cards. To get into the Bestial engine, we play triple copies of Bystial Lubellion, triple copies of Magnamut, and then 2 copies of each Bystial Stairnier and Bystial Druid Swarm. So this engine is absolutely insane, and I guess I'll just go ahead and put them out right now. 1 copy of Branded Beast and 1 copy of Branded Regained. So I'm just going to explain this engine really quick. Branded or Bystial Lubellion, you can discard it to add one of the other bestial monsters from deck to hand, which is super nice, and then you can special summon it from your hand or your graveyard, and you have to note that it's not an activated effect to special summon this card, but you can send a level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster from your field to the graveyard to special summon this card, and then you can go ahead and activate this card's effect on the field to activate a continuous branded spell or trap from your deck. So that's a lot to take in, but it's, I mean, obviously we want our cards to do a lot, and this card is absolutely insane because the rest of the bestial monsters are super good too. So Bestial Magnamut is, if your opponent controls a monster, they all share this in common, by the way. If your opponent controls a monster, it's a quick effect that you can banish a light or dark monster from the graveyard and then special summon this card. So when Bestial Magnamut is summoned, you get a search. You can activate the effect to search during the end phase for a dragon monster, any dragon monster, which is insane because you can also search for cards like Fallen of Albaz or the Albion as well. And then Saronir, when it is sent to the graveyard, you can send a branded spell or trap to the graveyard or a bestial card from deck to grave. So sometimes you might want to send Lubellion, other times you might want to send another bestial spell or trap, or a branded spell or trap. And then Bystial Druid Swarm, when it is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. So really tons of utility in this engine here. And then probably the best part, like the most insane like value of this engine, is Branded Regained. Whenever a light or dark monster is banished, you can put it on the bottom of the deck and draw a card, and that's a once per turn. But also it allows you to special summon back a bestial monster from your graveyard when your opponent normal or special summons a monster, which is absolutely insane. And then Branded Beast, being able to tribute, if you control a bestial monster, if you contribute 1 dragon monster you control to destroy 1 card your opponent controls. So this card can help you out. Stuff like Mystic Mine, or just like Floodgates in general. Really a big fan of Branded Beast. And also during the end phase, you can reset or reactivate a continuous branded card in your graveyard. So cards, the whole engine's like kind of complicated to take in, but once you understand what it does and get used to playing with it, it absolutely provides so much value for the deck. Then we play for the branded spells and traps, triple copies of Branded Opening to get access to our Despia engine, triple copies of Branded Fusion, 2 copies of Branded in Red, and 1 copy of Theater, and 1 copy of Branded Sword. So Branded in Red's a lot less good than it was before, now that the Ishizu cards are out, and that our opponent can actually quick effect shuffle our stuff back into our deck, which is very annoying, and it's actually the reason why I'm not main decking Branded Banishment anymore. It's just so sad when these cards don't resolve, because they really are kind of like your win condition against a Tearlament deck, so we kind of have to resort to other win conditions now, but I still think it's definitely worth playing Branded in Red at 2. Theater's a nice card in the grind game and just provides us with a poly every single turn. And then Branded Sword is a card that I threw back in here because we are playing the Mercarrier as well. And this card works out really well with Mercarrier. For the consistency and resource generating cards, we're just playing triple copies of Allure of Darkness and 1 copy of Goldsark. Honestly, we play plenty of dark monsters, so we don't really have to worry about the horrible downside of sending our entire hand to the graveyard. if we don't see a dark monster, but we also play a lot of dark monsters that we want to banish in this deck, being the Tragedy and the Mercarrier as well. So this card is really, really solid in finding us what we need. And then Gold Sark just automatically banishes, you know, something from our deck, which is, like I said, the Tragedy or the Mercarrier, really, really good targets to hit there. And then for the going second cards, we are playing triple copies of Triple Tactics Talent, triple copies of Forbidden Droplet, and triple copies of Super Poly. These are just like the bomb spell cards of the deck that are just insane for going second. So that is it for the main deck. It is an even 50 cards. Let's go ahead and get into the extra deck. Play two copies of Lubellion, 2 copies of Albion, 2 copies of Mirror Jade, a single copy of each Brigand, and Albaz. So I definitely feel like you want to play 2 of each of the main Albaz fusion monsters. We have ways to recycle them now with the branded Regained, which is really cool. So you don't really need to play 3 Albion, even though a lot of people do and have preferred to play 3 Albion in the past. But you know, this card is really insane to make with the Bystial Lubellion, because once you make this card, you can actually send it to the graveyard off of Bystial Lubellion to get it into the graveyard for free, pretty much, and then you can you know, go off with your Bystial Lubellion to get that engine rolling as well. And then during the end phase, this card will reset, or will set a branded spell trap from your deck, which is absolutely insane. And then we are playing the Brigand over Titaniclad just because we have the Mercarrier in our deck now, and then Albaz can help us, you know, break dragon boards. It doesn't really come up to break the dragon boards, but this is also an alternative card to send as opposed to Albion during your opponent's turn off of Mirror Jade, just because chances are you're going to be searching for branded fusion anyways, so you don't really need to send Albion and kind of waste it during your opponent's turn if you're just gonna, if you know you're searching the branded fusion. So definitely really feel like that lineup of the Albaz Dragons is pretty optimal right now. Then we play 2 copies of Masquerade and 1 copy of Quertus for our Despia fusions. We don't honestly kill our opponent super often, but we do inflict pretty sizable chunks of damage. So then going into this card after we've already dealt damage to our opponent puts them on a lot of pressure to try and come up with a way to kill this card and out it before they die. So it really puts our opponent in awkward situations, and the fact that it comes back to protect you during the battle phase, so long as they have an extra deck monster on the field, comes in clutch as well. And then Quertus is very good for breaking boards and protecting us as well. If we just have this card in defense and our opponent tries to go for battle phase, they have to out this card, or else they are going to have all their monsters attack become 0. So it's just like another layer of interruption that our opponent has to deal with. And also, if it gets removed from the field, you know, destroyed or banished, we can go ahead and summon a Despia monster from our deck, or a Fallen of Albaz. And the Fallen of Albaz can absolutely ruin your opponent's day if they don't see it coming, and then you summon it and fuse with one of their monsters and make Mirror Jade on them. Absolutely devastating. And then to round it off with the more generic fusions, we're playing the 1 copy of Chimera, 1 Despia, and then our Super Poly targets in Garura and Starving Venom. Starving Venom could be the Mud Dragon, but I'm not 100% sold on it. I really am a big fan of Starving Venom since so many monsters are dark right now. But Guardian Chimera is just really good to make during your opponent's turn with Branded in red. And then Despia is just a very easy fusion monster to go into in this deck that provides like an Effect Veiler-esque type negation. And then Garura is just the most generic Super Poly in the game right now. So that is it for the extra deck. Let's go ahead and run through the side deck real quick. The side deck definitely don't feel like it's perfect, but you know, it performed pretty well for me today. I want to say we are playing the Branded Banishment and the Called by the Grave. Like I said, these cards are really horrible going second against Tearlaments with the Ishizu engine. So I think they're better off than the side deck because they are insane cards. They just really aren't against that one particular deck. Then we played the 1 Duster, 1 Cosmic Cyclone, triple evenly matched. For back row decks, evenly matched goes pretty hard this format if you can find a way to bait a Tearlament Crime. So those are just, we want more traps trap cards in our deck as well, going second too, just because we don't want to lose to Eradicator. And then speaking of Eradicator, we are playing triple copies of Eradicator. Seriously, every single time I resolve this card, it's just an absolute blowout. It's just absolutely an unfair card right here. I definitely think it's so dirty to resolve that card. 2 copies of Skill Drain. This probably should be a different Floodgate, but couldn't really figure out what else to play today, so decided to keep it in. It won me a game today, so, you know, going first, it can just be an oppressive card. And then to round it off, probably the best Floodgate that this deck can play, triple copies of TC Boo. TC Boo is just insane versus any kind of like tribal deck out there, so automatically wins you games there. So that is it for the deck profile, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you hit the like and potentially even the subscribe button. But with that, I am going to leave you with a peace out, have a nice day, and goodbye.